Ross Bolen Podcast.
You better listen.
Brought to you by
Bolen Media.
RBP, 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 Ross Bolen.
Better listen.
RBP, 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 RBP.
Welcome back to episode 263 of the Ross Bolen Podcast, otherwise known as RBP 263, presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, of course, Ross Bolen, here today, solo dolo in the stew on a Friday to hopefully bring you some laughs and maybe some peace, maybe a wee bit of knowledge too. We will see. No promises. A small anecdote before we dive in here, right off the rip. This last few months, I have spent, admittedly, almost entirely alone in my personal life in an effort to recenter my shit. And I'll explain that more in the very near future, hopefully. But the point is this. Coming out of the fog this past couple weeks, I was like, man, fuck this noise. I'm going to set up my life where I get to spend time with, or at least speaking to, people that I love and respect. So what I've started doing is scheduling these standing lunches. Now, a standing lunch, if you're not familiar with that concept, means it's a lunch that you have, it repeats. You know, maybe it's a weekly standing lunch. Maybe it's monthly. Maybe it's the second Wednesday of every month. You eat lunch with the same person. That's a standing lunch. Okay? So I set up standing lunches, coffee meetings, and then phone calls with my people who are out of town. And this is something that I've seen, you know, so many successful people I respect over the years do, but networking has never, ever been something I'm good at. It's never been one of the things that I'm naturally gifted with. So, like, I'm good at talking into the microphone. I'm good at social media. I'm not good at networking. I'm not good at making sure that I am meeting new people, both professionally and personally, and that I'm staying in touch with my existing relationships, both professionally and personally. So I'm loving this concept so far. I've gotten a couple calls in so far this week. I've got a call with my buddy Eric Muller later this afternoon. You guys heard from him on Patreon in January. And I'm reassembling my inner circle. And I know there's a lot of confusion related to this on the internet in particular about who exactly my people are. There's like a lot of assumptions that get made out there. And I see them every single day, not just in my replies, also in the DMs. And I don't really be saying shit because that's not the way I want to run this, right? That's not the way I want to live. But I'm just saying be careful what you assume based on the past. Like a lot of y'all who follow me and listen, like think it's like 2017 in my inner circle or some shit. And them folks are mostly gone. But Bill's still here. Bill's still strong. What? I digress. Our show here, the Ross Bolen Podcast, if you are new, is rooted in comedy and humor and laughs, but we also are what you might call a lifestyle podcast. We talk about mental health. We tackle relationship issues, anxiety, depression, substance abuse, very serious subjects, obviously, addiction, family issues. Our community of listeners is known as the RBP Gang, and it's mostly a base of young adults between 18 to 24, but we also reach people from 17 to 70 and everywhere in between, and it's a supportive community of people just trying to make it through life one day at a time, improving ourselves and others, and hopefully the world around us as we go. We talk about animals a lot, big-time animal podcast, but also obscure history. We have a recurring segment called Stuff to Wikipedia When You're High, another one called Famous People We Want to Fight that we often get into pop culture with. We have current events in the form of Insane Headline of the Day, which, by the way, we have one today, and so much more. Almost every episode is broken down into segments, which you can find with time cues down below in the description so that you can see exactly what's happening each episode based on your schedule. You can listen at your own pace, speed, whatever. You don't have to have heard a single one of the 262 preceding episodes in order to enjoy RBP 263, but if you like today's show, obviously, we ask that you go back, get caught up, enjoy the backlog as you can. One episode of RBP might be drastically different than the next, but they all share the same goal, which is to get you through your work day, your school day, your whatever day in a slightly better way. RBP 263 is brought to you by Baked by Melissa. If you follow me on Instagram multiple times this past couple weeks, you've seen these tiny little orgasmic looking cupcakes. That is Baked by Melissa, baby. Valentine's Day is coming, and it's all about experiences, and you try to make shit memorable for your person, right? If it's not memorable, if it's not delicious and sticks with you forever, you're a failure, and you've given a terrible gift. Know what's going to push this year's experience over the top for your Valentine? Bite-sized cupcakes from Baked by Melissa. I ate 10 of these things in about 45 seconds the other night. They're unbelievable. I love them. I'm ordering them for myself and everyone I love. These baller little Baked by Melissa cupcakes for Valentine's Day. If you don't get your person Baked by Melissa this Valentine's Day and they listen to RBP, how the shit are you going to explain yourself? They're delicious. They're incredible, and they're here just in time for Valentine's Day. Choose from white chocolate cookies and cream, red velvet, milk chocolate, dulce de leche, and more. Plus vegan and gluten-free options. Every damn flavor they have is incredible. I cannot pick a favorite. I love them all. They're all great. How could you pick a favorite? Baked by Melissa treats are delicious. They're perfectly bite-sized, so you can have one in every flavor, and you will want to. Baked by Melissa offers 1 and 2 day shipping nationwide. The last day for standard shipping for Valentine's Day delivery is February 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay? This Valentine's Day, send your loved ones the perfect gift. Baked by Melissa. Go to bakedbymelissa.com. Use the promo code RBP to get 15% off your order. Take advantage of this special offer just for the RBP gang. That's 15% off at bakedbymelissa, MELISSA.com. Promo code RBP. Some announcements, some shouts as well. Shouts to my girl Zoe and especially her boyfriend Evan. They've been together 2 years next week. Evan introduced her to RBP, and then just through fate or whatever, me and Zoe have somehow become like Snapchat weed smoking homies now. Weird world, but a great world when you let it be. Happy birthday to Dakota McGee. Dakota with 2 Ds. Appreciate you supporting both RBP and OCC and being a day one. Thank you and happy birthday. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or SoundCloud, that's awesome. But there is something you should know. You could have been watching on youtube.com/Bolen Media. All right, we put every new episode up in full video form right there on the Bolen Media YouTube channel. It's brand new. We got close to 1,000 subscribers already. youtube.com/Bolen Media. Happy birthday, Jack. Probably a lot of you named Jack listening who are like, which one? I don't fucking know. February 2nd. All of you, everyone named Jack that's listening, happy fucking birthday. Also, Paul. Happy birthday, Paul. Thanks for getting your boy Kyle into the pod. Make it a great one. Patreon people, keep the pictures of you in the merchandise coming. Keep them coming. Snap them at me, DM them at me, whatever the fuck, preferably snap at WR Bolen. Good shit so far. Love seeing you on the merch. Keep the merch coming. If you're a prize winner, if you won a hat on twitch.tv/BossRollin, if you won that Liquid IV pack with the AirPods in it, we do a lot of giveaways on twitch.tv/BossRollin. That shit's coming. You'll get it next week. I promise. I know it was a month and a half ago when you won. I've been busy. Real busy. Follow us on Instagram at the Ross Bolen Podcast, where every day we fill up our story with photos and videos sent in by our listenership, affectionately known as the RBP Gang. We're also on Twitter at Ross Bolen Pod, and you can find us on Facebook if you're the middle-aged aunt of one of our listeners. Some amends. We have multiple mascots who have reached out to me from the high school, from the collegiate and professional levels to clarify that not all mascots are furries. Confirmed. Also, as I've mentioned the last few episodes, we have a new intern, Natalie, out in California way, who's our fact-checking intern, and she provides us with amends to each episode. Here's some from 262. And not just amends. She also gives us interesting tidbits that we maybe forgot to mention. Patient 0 of the coronavirus apparently fell ill on December 1st of 2019, according to the Financial Times. Between 1990 and 2019, There were 5,098 accidents or serious incidents involving helicopters in the U.S. Of those 5,098, 907 involved fatalities. So that's 17.8%. So considering the amount of chopper rides, obviously a very low amount. Rest in peace to Kobe and Gigi again, obviously. Apparently that was it. I didn't mess up too much shit in RBP 262. Good for me. President Abraham Lincoln did not enjoy retirement. Richard Nixon did not enjoy impeachment. The population of China is 1.439 billion. Now it's time for our first segment. Insane headline of the day. Y'all ready for this? It's Chipotle related. Had to get some Chipotle talk in today. It's been too long. Cut the fucking check. Chipotle fined over $1 million for abusing child labor laws. These guys, who is running this company? What the shit? Salmonella, you're poisoning us all. You're hiring children and then forcing them to work insane hours. This story shouldn't be funny, but it's very funny. Look, the details came out. Essentially what happened is Chipotle had employees literally under 18, minors, working insane hours, like more than 48 hours a week, which is very illegal, and then also like past midnight. Children. What is this, Mother Russia? What the fuck happened here? How is this a thing? It's one of the biggest food companies in the country. A $1.3 million fine to Chipotle is laughable, though. This is like the fines they hand NBA players. Fining James Harden $10K doesn't do anything. He makes that in 45 seconds. Chipotle makes a $1.3 million. I've probably spent $1.3 million at Chipotle over the course of my life. They violated more than 13,000 child labor laws. 13, isn't that all of them? How many child labor laws are there? In Massachusetts restaurants specifically. The state's attorney general in Massachusetts is the one leveling all. What are they going to start checking the other states? We got kids working down here in Texas too? The fuck is this? You can't have children working under 18 past midnight, more than 48 hours a week, making burritos and serving up overpriced guac? Psychotic. So Attorney General Healy ordered the largest child labor penalty ever issued by the state of Massachusetts against the Mexican restaurant chain after finding an estimated 13,253 child labor violations in its more than 50 locations. I don't even, what is it? What do? Do they just go from Chipotle to Chipotle and they're like, all right, we're going to need to see some IDs here. And there's like, a couple 35-year-olds working up at the front that it's obvious. And then they've got children hidden in the back like shredding cheese or some shit. What the fuck? Where are these kids? This is just the weirdest fucking story to me. I just can't. And nobody cares. It's one of those things you see the headline, you're like, whatever, fuck it. And then 2 weeks later, you're back at Chipotle ordering a fucking salad to make yourself feel better. It's bizarre. Here's a quote. Chipotle is a major national restaurant chain that employs thousands of young people across the country, and it has a duty to ensure minors are safe working in its restaurants, Healy said in a statement. We hope these citations send a message to other fast food chains and restaurants that they cannot violate our child labor laws and put young people at risk. Isn't this something we solved in the fucking 50s or 40s? We're back? Child labor? The settlement total is actually closer to $2 million when you include the penalties for earned sick time violations in which managers granted employees paid time off only for certain illnesses. The violations also include failure to keep accurate records and pay timely wages. Just all of the things that you're supposed to do for your employees as a company. Lastly, the company was ordered to pay a voluntary $500,000 payout to a state youth worker fund dedicated to education, enforcement, and training. How are you ordered to volunteer $500,000? You're ordered, it's no longer, you're not volunteering it at that point. I don't get it. Maybe if they spent less time forcing children to work long and illegal hours and more time cutting the fucking check, we wouldn't be in this position in the first place, where you have no napkins, you have no utensils remaining, and now you have no more children to enslave. The RBP gang is winning this fight whether you like it or not. We will win the war as well. Surrender or die. Cut the fucking check, kiss my ass, kiss his ass. Happy Hanukkah, moving on. RBP 263 is also brought to you by Felix Gray. You may not realize it, but the average American blasts their eyes with bright screens for 11 hours every day. And when you consider how much our days revolve around our screens, our televisions, our computers, our cell phones, it really doesn't seem that crazy. There's like literally 6 or 7 screens pointed at my face right now. The blue light is just shredding right through my contact lenses. And the fact is, we can't eliminate this extensive screen time from our lives. We need this technology. Most of us work with it. But we can protect our eyes from it with a pair of Felix Gray blue light filtering glasses available in both non-prescription and prescription. I have the Faraday frames in black. I've actually got a couple new pairs coming my way. I'm very excited about this. I wear them every night, either when I'm gaming at the end of the day or when I'm getting in bed to watch some TV or a little bit of a movie before I crash. I've worn contacts since I was 12 years old. I'm blind as a bat. If I take these shits out, I can't see a damn thing. But by the end of the day, my eyes hurt like a motherfucker, man. I'm tired. My eyes are more tired than any other piece of my body. I need my Felix Grays to give me relief, and they give me instant relief the second I put them on. I feel so much better. Too many of us in America have tired, dry eyes, blurry vision, or headaches caused by screens by the end of the day. If that sounds as familiar to you as it does to me, Felix Gray glasses are the answer. Felix Gray filter out 90% of high-energy blue light, eliminate 99% of glare coming from your daily barrage of screens, and they're unlike any other blue light filtering glasses. They use proprietary blue light technology embedded into the lens, as opposed to a cheap coating that can easily chip or scratch over time like some of their competitors. Felix Gray is on a mission to make fashionable, high-quality blue light protection widely available and accessible by offering a variety of frames for all face shapes and style preferences. I love Felix Gray, man. These dudes are incredible. You need this protection. Listen up. Fantastic for gaming, movie and TV lovers, everyone who works on computers and phones all day. That's all of you. Don't go another day without looking at screens without the help of some Felix Grays. Go to felixgrayglasses.com/RBP for free shipping and 30 days of risk-free returns or exchanges. That's felixgrayglasses.com/RBP. FELIXGRAY glasses.com/RBP. Next segment, RBP Impact Initiative. As I've mentioned, 2 of the last 3 episodes, we are doing a very special sort of, I don't know what the hell you would call this, reoccurring segment. I don't know. We're building up to an episode that's going to be just centered on this concept of the RBP Impact Initiative. Essentially, this is how it works. If you have listened to this show for an extended amount of time, if you've been here since day 1, or if you jumped in 6 months ago, some of you jumped in last week, I don't care. If you have a story about a way that if the show has impacted you in some positive way, preferably positive, I guess it could be negative, email me and let me know if it's been negative so that I can try to help. But hopefully positive. Ross at rossbolenpodcast.com is my email. I have I have a lot of listeners hitting me up to share with me the way that this show has impacted their life. You put the subject line as RBP Impact Initiative so that I know what it is, and you just tell me whatever it is you want to tell me. If you want to keep it anonymous, keep it anonymous. If you want to make it your first name, fine. If you want me to tell your first and last name, that's cool. It is whatever. Whatever you want me to share, I'll share. I've read hundreds of these so far. Some of these stories from y'all are just unfreaking believable. I am not replying to all of them. There are far too many. But I will be reading many of them on the show. We've done quite a few already over the past few weeks as examples, so that people can continue sending theirs in to Ross at rossbolenpodcast.com, emailing me their RBP Impact Initiative stories. And I've got a couple more today. A couple examples for y'all in case you're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how this works. Here's one from a guy named Colin, okay? He lives in Massachusetts, but he said, not a Pats fan, though. He said, go Packers. He was introduced to the pod by, I'll read you his email here. I was first introduced to the pod by one of my friends and was immediately hooked. Now we can't stop quoting it. I went through a pretty tough breakup that left me depressed, without a job, and feeling like the only people I had were my friend that introduced me to the show and you. It got to the point where I just accepted the depression as part of my personality and thought I was stuck with it for the rest of my life until you helped me realize, all caps, fuck that. It's not my actual self. I have to change this. Since the realization, I've taken many steps into helping myself. I'm not 100% there yet, but I can feel it coming soon. Thank you for being an inspiration in every episode. Gang, gang, gang. Chipotle. Cut the fucking check. That last part again. All caps. So, I mean, it could be, we've read some that are incredibly intense, related to drug abuse or suicide attempts or whatever, all kinds of life problems. But it could be something as simple as You went through a tough stretch. Show helped you out. Doesn't have to be crazy. You know what I'm saying? Here's another one from Minnesota. Shouts to the state of Minnesota. It's been too long since I gave you people props as my second favorite state in the entire union. Nobody knows my number one. Nobody. Hey, Ross, it's Hutton from Minnesota. I've been a listener since day one, also a member of the Crustacean Nation. Oh, sweet, dude. Thank you for supporting OCC. And super excited for the long-awaited return of FAMF. Just wanted to share my experience with RBP, but also how the RBP Impact Initiative can be about stuff that's not as serious and life-changing. Hey, here we go again. Also just about how it can impact your life in the small ways that truly do have a positive impact. I listen to an episode of RBP on my drive to work and on my drive home every day. It gives me great conversation starters from my coworkers, friends, and family members. The podcast has been, what? You're talking to your friends and family members about squirrels and furries a lot, huh? Anyway, it gives me a great conversation starters from my coworkers, friends, and family members. The podcast has been educational for me in the sense that I get to learn about new animals, serial killers, cowboys, pirates, apparently furries and squirrels now, and many, many more things. He actually wrote that. I did not insert that joke, and I did not know it was coming. It has encouraged me to no longer make trash mistakes on the daily. Yeah, me too, man. I even got my brother into the podcast, and that gave us something to talk about. That is fucking cool. That makes me very happy. And it's helped strengthen our relationship. That's really fucking cool. I believe the pod has improved my overall mental health and keeps me positive on a daily basis, and I want to thank you, Micah, Jared, AJ, and producer Mike for doing all that you guys do to make everyone's day just a little bit better. Gang, gang, gang. Peace be with you and also with you. I'll throw a special shout to producer Granton, who's with me in the studio today. So that y'all get the idea. That's the gist of it. You know, you email in, you tell me whatever it is you want to tell me. If it doesn't have to be fucking crazy, it doesn't have to be that you were on, you know, literally on the ledge about to jump and someone was like, listen to this podcast. And you were like, oh my God, life is worth living. It doesn't have to be that. You know, it could be anything. It could be that you were eating way too much goddamn candy and you listened to the show and you were like, I got to stop eating all this fucking candy. This is insane. I'm eating too much candy. Could be that you listened to the show and you were like, I'm a furry. It's time for me to go buy a costume. I don't know what it is. Just email it to me. Ross at rossbolenpodcast.com. Very excited to do a full episode at some point in the next couple weeks that will be just RBP Impact Initiative responses, replies, and stories from y'all. It's going to be awesome. I promise you it will be one of the best episodes we've ever done. Very much looking forward to it. Now, next and final segment, Houston Vibe Check. So for those of you who are unaware, shouldn't be many of you, I am from Houston, Texas. That is where I was born. That's where I was raised. That's where I stayed until I went to college in San Marcos, Texas at Texas State University. And then when I graduated, I moved straight to Austin. I didn't move back. Technically, I was there for a year after my first semester. Some of y'all know that. Look, you're complicating my story. Shut up. The idea is, though, my entire family is still in Houston, okay? And I am still very much a psychotic and perhaps unhealthily obsessed Houston sports fan. So this past few years has been very, very confusing for me. It goes without saying. And honestly, I am 1 degree removed from the H. And I needed some boots on the ground to tell me how the people are holding up. How the citizens are doing in these times of turmoil and great hostility, where we have somehow become among the most hated sports cities in the world with the likes of New York and LA, minus the rings, which is really fucking unfortunate. So, I called my friend, Mr. Sean Pendergast, which, by the way, Sean appeared on RBP 146. That was over 100, and I can't do math episodes ago. He came into the studio with us. It ended up being one of the most fun episodes that I got to do in 2019. Sean is awesome. His fiance, Amy, did they get married now? Are y'all married yet, Sean? I can't fucking, congratulations either way. Also awesome. Went to dinner with me when they were in town. Great people. And Sean does a phenomenal job. If you have not listened to RBP 146, go listen to Sean's story. But now Sean is on Sports Radio 610 each weekday, 6 to 10 a.m. CST. Sports Radio 610 from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning, CST, every single weekday. Sean Pendergast, the dude is awesome. I gave him a phone call. I called him up. I said, Sean, we need to talk. And I recorded that conversation. He knew. It was legal. Here it is. Mr. Pendergast. Sean, last time we spoke, all was right with the world. The Astros were spotless World Series champions. The Rockets were reloading with Russell Westbrook, ready to take on a warriorless NBA season. The Texans and Deshaun Watson looked perhaps poised to make their first Super Bowl run. What in the hell happened?
Yeah, dude. Boy, you paint a really pretty picture of how things used to be right there. That was a simpler time and place, man.
We were living the good life.
When all was well in the world. A.J. Hinch was still employed. Deshaun Watson was the king of the world. The Rockets weren't the Rockets weren't losing double-digit games. Losing by double digits to Portland with Harden and Westbrook in the lineup. Those were fun times, man. Those were fun times.
They really were. And Sean, the weird thing for me is, like, as you know, I'm from Houston. I'm from Houston. I love Houston. It's very much my hometown still, and I'm a Houston sports fan through and through. But I live in Austin, and as a result, like, the only way I can check the vibe of the city, Houston sports-wise, is through Twitter, which, as we all know, is sort of a hellacious echo chamber. So I have some questions. Like, first of all, how is the city holding up? Like, what's the morale like that you're feeling every day on your show? And have you and all the other well-known sports talk guys and your co-hosts lost your fucking mind yet?
Yeah, I would say that it probably, Ross, bottomed out like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
It probably bottomed out. If you remember, it was a 24-hour period in which the Texans blew a 24-point lead to the Chiefs. Literally less than 24 hours later, all hell was breaking loose, and they were like, MLB is raining bombs down on the Astros, and the Rockets, who then at that point have a really good chance to pick up some support in the city. I mean, from being here, like, you and I are both huge Rocket fans, right?
Yes.
But that in this city, especially with the Astros winning right now, the Rockets are the third-class citizen among those three teams because football is bulletproof.
Yes.
And the Astros are they were 8 outs away from winning a second championship. The Rockets really had a chance to kind of win some hearts and minds over. And what did they do? They went out and lost 4 in a row. So it probably bottomed out 2 weeks ago, and now. How I envision it, like the end of those Transformer movies where even though the good guys end up winning, the entire city is just torn to shit. Like the whole city is just a mess, and that's something that's always bothered me about those movies. Like we're supposed to be happy, like even superhero movies are like that too.
Right.
Like the city is torn to shreds. It looks like 9/11 in the streets, and we're supposed to be happy that the good guys won. And I'm always the person that walks out of the movie theater like, okay, who's gonna clean this shit up? Like, I need the deleted scenes where first responders are going in and rescuing people. Like, there's a lot of people still trapped in their cars, and we're supposed to be celebrating Batman winning this whole thing. And so it's kind of like how I envision the deleted scene being after one of those movies where, okay. The streets are getting cleaned up. Everybody's getting medical attention. The sun is kind of metaphorically poking through the clouds, and we're like, okay, now I don't know that any of these three teams are ready to win at the level we expected them to, but at least I've mentally accepted what's gone on, and I'm ready to attack the world. I think that kind of is where the city is right now too. Like, I think the O'Brien thing, which I know we're going to dig into all this stuff.
Yeah.
I think the O'Brien thing, like, we've all kind of accepted that that's the reality of the Texans. It was just that statement from Cal McNair was kind of affirming it,
right?
Bringing clarity to it. Just triggered everybody. The Astros, I think everybody's ready to just fight. You know what I mean? Like everybody's ready to just go to war with the rest of MLB. And the Rockets, who the hell knows what the Rockets right now? I mean, it varies from night to night.
Is it the weirdest period though in terms of like? I mean, it's got to be the strangest transitional period from utter and total, like everybody in Houston believed we had entered the like A-lister sports city, tier.
Yeah.
We all wanted to believe we were there with New York and Chicago and LA and whatever. And like, I mean, maybe we came close, but we weren't there. And now it turns out we're not as close as we thought. I mean, to start where you started with Bill O'Brien, we all expected him to get. Nobody expected him to truly get fired. None of us were thinking like, yeah, Bill O is gone after that's. I mean, it just didn't seem like he was there yet. But for him to get a promotion out of the most recent disappointing like shitstorm of a season, How bad is that situation with Cal McNair as the owner, and is it gonna be okay, or is this my life football forever now with just mediocrity and Bill O'Brien's butt chin?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Let's start with the first part of the question. I didn't really see the statement from McNair as really him being promoted as much as it was just a title attached to him that we all knew he was doing already. He was already doing the job of the general manager, even though every time you asked him, anytime somebody asked him about it in a press conference, he was like, "Oh no, I'm just part of this committee and we build a consensus." My co-host Seth Payne does a tremendous bit with O'Brien where he calls, whenever O'Brien gets asked a question that he just wants to dodge and avoid and think that everybody's stupid, he calls him Southern Belle O'Brien, where he takes on the character of like one of those like debutante Southern belles twirling her umbrella who's like, "Well, oh me, oh my, I just don't know how I wound up getting this little general manager's job."
Right.
I have no idea how I stumbled into such good fortune of being the general manager of this committee.
He's a damsel in distress.
So, and what's that?
A damsel in distress.
And then, a damsel apparently in distress who's actually completely in control of the situation.
Yes,
is what he is. So, so really, to answer your question, Ross, the first part of it, like this is really just a title that was given to him to sort of bring clarity to what he is to the organization.
Okay.
Because him and Jack Easterby both, and we can talk about Easterby too. They didn't get a raise or an extension out of this. There was no bump up in salary.
Okay.
This was just McNair saying, "Hey, this is what these two guys' jobs are."
So is it almost like a clarification so that they can be held more responsible to the job title?
Maybe. I think it's a clarification. This is what I think it is. Cal McNair does not do a lot of media. You know what I mean?
Like almost none.
Jerry Jones is in town last week. Jerry Jones was in town last week for the Houston Sports Awards, and I interviewed Jerry Jones, and I said to myself, I've now interviewed Jerry Jones more this year than I've interviewed the owner of the Texans. You know what I mean? So he doesn't do much media. So I think this was more. I think the purpose of the statement was, one, to bring clarity. Maybe to bring sort of a lightning rod effect, like, okay, these are the two guys who you need to go to. These are the two guys who are responsible for all this bloodshed that's going on in the organization right now. And oh, by the way, I'm Cal McNair and I'm behind these guys. You know, so whether you agree or disagree with O'Brien and I completely disagree that he's qualified for like most of the jobs that he has right now.
Oh, good.
But Cal McNair is at least putting his support behind him. So he's taking an opinion and he's taking a stand on it, even if you disagree with it. Which brings us to the other part of the question, which is I'm completely terrified of the direction of the Texans right now.
Oh God,
I'm so nervous about the direction of this team. And I think here to me, among a few problems, is the biggest problem, is that Deshaun Watson is too good for this team to fail to the degree that I see radical change coming. You know what I mean? Like Deshaun
this is my
Watson
fear.
is
Yes.
too good for this team to go worse than 9-7. And my fear is that 9-7 is going to be enough to just kind of keep mucking along with things the way they are. And by the way, things the way they are with a draft board that's complete Swiss cheese the next 2 years because of the Laramie Tunsil trade, and with cap space that's a lot of cap space that's going to get swallowed up by Deshaun Watson, Laramie Tunsil, and a few other guys. So I'm completely terrified of the direction of this Texans. There's nothing I can do, Ross, to talk both of us off of the off of how we feel about the Texans. Like, no, I'm completely terrified.
I totally understand. I mean, that's one where I've struggled to get anything positive out of anyone anywhere. Like, they really just didn't give us anything outside of, like, people will say, "No, I'm really excited to watch Deshaun Watson again," but that's it. The rest of it's just, there's nothing to get excited about within that franchise. It seems like the entire thing is just a total joke, even to the people that are literally running the show. Bill O'Brien doesn't apparently have a desire to win more than he has already. If he does, he hasn't done a good job of expressing it to us or leading his team in that direction. So, whatever. I guess I'll continue to watch. As far as the Astros go, though.
Real quick before we get to the Astros, I think O'Brien's hyper competitive and wants to win really badly, but I think the problem is there's no checks and balances with him right now.
Right.
You know, a good general manager partners with a coach so that the two of them have different sets of eyes on things. And now it's one set of eyes. It's two sets of eyes. It's O'Brien and this Jack Easterby, who hasn't met with the media one time since he got here like a year ago. But all of a sudden he's gone from being a team chaplain in Kansas City to being a character coach in New England to now he's the executive vice president of football operations. Like, he and O'Brien are in charge of everything. This dude was like giving communion like in Kansas City and New England. And now all of a sudden he's making big decisions about players and things like that.
Oh, holy shit. You're not kidding.
You'll like this. You'll like this. We were trying to figure out which Game of Thrones character Easterby is.
Wow.
And we got a lot of, it turns out he could be any of like 7 different characters. But I think what he is, I think he's like if Littlefinger and the High Sparrow had a baby, I think it would be Jack Easterby.
I'm looking at a picture of him.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Well, I don't mean physically, although I'll let you decide that.
A little bit.
But like the High Sparrow kind of has that religion, like zealot sort of thing going on.
Sure.
And Littlefinger has that ability to just politically maneuver his way. You know, he maneuvered his way from being some kid in the streets and the owner of a brothel to being an influential voice. So I think, but we got people saying, no, he's Varys. No, he's the Hand of the King. No, he's Bronn. Like Easterby. I almost don't want him to speak because I just want to keep applying Game of Thrones characters to him and pretending that he's them. Like, don't do a press conference. I'm just going to go back and watch season 6 and pretend that you're all of these guys.
At least he's mysterious that way, and we know exactly who O'Brien is, and it's becoming more and more disturbing by the day. I love this Easterby guy. I don't know who the fuck he is. I've only heard about him today, but he's awesome. I'm all in on Easterby.
Hey, dude, you need to do some reading up on Easterby, brother. You got to go check his Twitter timeline. It's like all inspirational tweets and stuff like that. You know, like it's like a lot of like Bible quotes.
Oh, hell yeah.
Retweeting inspiration. He retweets like really random. Like he retweets Brandon Cooks all the time for some reason. Like I know he was like with him in New England for a year, but like of all the players, nobody's ever said like Brandon Cooks is this beacon of inspiration. I'm like, he's just a dude who's been traded like 4 times. But he retweets like some really random things, but it's all like inspirational stuff. But like I feel like he would be retweeting that to me, and then like 5 seconds later I got fired, and I just don't know what the hell happened. But I'd be really happy about getting fired. Like, yeah, I go, Easterby just fired me, but he just explained why it's going to be the best thing for me. He pointed me to Ecclesiastes. You know, like it's just bizarre,
dude. That's an incredible concept. I really hope that's how that situation currently works. He's unloading Bible verses on dudes as he shows them the door. Okay, can we jump over to the Astros?
Crazy.
You cool with jumping to the Astros, Sean?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so from what I can tell on Twitter, and from as you mentioned, everybody Astros fans just ready to fight everybody, right? We can't even bring it up in my Houston group text anymore. Like, there's 2 guys in Austin, 2 in San Francisco, 1 in Houston in this group text, and 1 in Dallas. And we're all rooting for the same teams, and we know each other since high school. And we can't even drop a link to, like, an update on the story anymore. Like, yesterday there was more shit that came out about this Astros fan that watched every single away pitch or whatever, or home pitch, whichever one it was.
Yeah.
And we can't even link it up. Dude, people freak out.
He was on our station today, that guy.
No shit.
He was on our afternoon show. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet because I was in a meeting, but this Tony Adams. I know what you're talking about. This dude sat down and watched all the games and sat there listening on on headphones for bangs for all these things. And it just like the study just ripped my soul out. I'm like, no, not Altuve, no.
Dude, yes.
Yeah,
and the thing is, those numbers aren't even like indicative of how much guys, I'm doing air quotes here, cheated, because the non-bangs were obviously let you know a fastball is coming, that you weren't looking at a breaking ball or whatever. So basically all the guys I know, everybody in Houston, people are like, fuck the world, fuck all y'all, full Patriots, like you can suck one. Being a step removed and watching it on Twitter, I'm in a place where I'm like, I don't know what to make of this. Like I like Twitter has basically made me believe that the Astros franchise and all of our fans and myself are the most demonic and evil humans on the planet and all going to hell. Is that true?
Yeah, well, no, you're right. It's true that Twitter makes us feel that way, but I don't feel that. You know, Twitter tries to make us feel that way. I had an epiphany at one point. Like, I was really struggling with this thing too, as I'm sure you did and all your buddies.
I
on the
still
group
am,
text
man.
did. Like, I was really, yeah. And well, I remember exactly where I was. It was like 2 Saturdays ago, and I'm driving down 288. I'm driving home, down to Pearland. And I was leaving I just left the kolache factory by the stadium to go buy, like 12 kolaches to go eat or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just driving home on 288 on a Saturday morning. I got the Garth channel on. I'm just kind of chilling. And I'm like, all of a sudden, for some reason, it hit me. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck everybody. I'm so psyched for baseball in 2020. Like, I am legitimately excited for the Astros to go out and win a shit ton of games and make a deep playoff run and go prove to everybody, as if 2019 shouldn't prove it anyways, because they stopped doing all that shit in 2018. But I just had the epiphany, Ross, where it was like a serenity now moment. I'm like, you know what? I'm ready for baseball now. I'm ready for 2020. And that's how I'm going to approach this thing. That is the healthy place for me to be right now, is just to be ready to go put up a big middle finger to all these other fan bases and ignore the noise on Twitter. Don't, because here's the thing about all these people on Twitter. This is what they don't realize or they're denying, is that they can sit here and throw all the stones at us if they want to. There's going to be other shoes dropping with some of this shit. There will be more stuff coming out. These fan bases need to be a little careful about how perfect they feel their boys are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened in the steroid era too, man, when it first got weird and people were like, look at these cheaters. And then it turned out, everybody everywhere, every good guy, every all-star was using this shit.
Right.
The thing for
and
me,
the
though.
steroid thing was even worse. The steroid thing was even worse because even with this trash can banging thing, they didn't use it every game. You know what I mean? Not every player used it. It looked like every Astro at least tried it out. That was the most disturbing thing to me about this Tony Adams, the study that he did, is that it looked like every guy was on the list of at least trying it out. Like even like Altuve was like the kid at the party who took like one hit of weed and then just decided like, no, this probably isn't for me. He had like 24 bangs out of 866 pitches. He was way down on the list. I could just see Altuve like, no, this is not for me. I don't need to do this weed. I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to swing my bat, and I'm just going to win an MVP, But, like, Bregman and Springer and some of those guys were, like, they were way up high on the list of guys who were trying this out,
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Dude, so you're not worried about that at all? Are you not worried about the aspect of, like, okay, for me, my biggest concern at this point isn't even the other fans. It's not even I don't care about the media anymore. I know it's all a game. But I worry about dudes like Bregman, like Springer, who were at the top of that fucking bang list, who those are young guys that now have a lot of hate coming their way for at least another season. A lot. Every single game. Yeah. And they know that if they don't go out this year and kick ass, everybody's going to use that against them. The media narrative will continue to turn. Oh, look, this is why these fools can't hit a baseball now. They don't have trash cans banging for them. So is that, like, are they already at a level to get to where they're at, to be that good on the professional level? Have you already mentally conquered that realm? And is this something I don't need to worry about, or is that a legitimate concern for these guys going into next season?
Well, I'll put it this way. Like, and Bregman and Springer specifically are the guys that I looked up because they're the ones that are still with the team. They're other than Altuve, they're the guys that matter in this whole thing when it comes to swinging a bat, of the guys from 2017. And in that season in 2017, they had better splits on the road than they did at home. Like Bregman's OPS was like 100 points higher on the road. So and then Bregman 2019, there's no indication they were doing any of this bullshit. And Bregman finished runner-up for the MVP. And Springer might have won the MVP if he had stayed healthy. He was hitting so well. So, I'm going to assume in 2019, since they weren't doing that stuff anymore, that they were doing it maybe naively. I'm going to assume they were doing it honestly. I think the biggest thing I'm worried about is just the kind of what you were alluding to. Like now there's something that could get in their head. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like before, and Bregman's a notoriously slow starter too. That's the thing. Like he usually is somebody who doesn't start getting his real groove going till like June. So what happens with, say, Bregman when he's slumping like he always does in April and May, but now he's doing it and he's getting asked about this bullshit every day, and he's going to get asked about it every day. So how does this, does this turn into like a bit of spyware in their brain. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
things just aren't functioning the way they should. Your computer slows down a little bit. You're like, man, it's working. You know, he can swing a bat, but it looks like he's all fucked up in the head. That's the part that worries me. Like, I think those guys are naturally good baseball players, but this is a really unique and weird variable that's being injected into the situation.
And then you have a better feel on Dusty Baker than I do in terms of, like, you've seen him around for forever. I mean, that's how I know him, right?
Yeah.
Last time I remember seeing him, he's in a Cubs jersey in my head. So
Right.
I'm trying to make, is that higher to you? Does that make sense from the perspective of what we just talked about? Like, these dudes basically need an old man to be able to sit there and tell them everything's going to be okay, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. My biggest criteria, Ross, for who they hired at manager, my stated criteria at the beginning of this whole thing when they fired AJ Hinch was my main thing, don't bring in somebody who's going to upset the chemistry in the clubhouse. This is a team that really likes playing for one another. It's a team that gets along. It's a team that had a manager that kind of was the manager. AJ Hinch had a managerial style that was conducive to this group. He wasn't Buck Showalter, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
he wasn't a taskmaster. He was a player's manager, but he was respected. Bring in a guy like that. So I think Dusty Baker checks that box. Now, the concern with me for Dusty Baker is just purely like the dude has not been a good postseason manager. Like, he's 0-10 in his last 10 closeout games in a postseason series. 0-10.
That's not good.
So no, that's a bad record. I don't know if you do the math. That's a .000 winning percentage in those 10 games. So that concerns me a little bit. I'm not as concerned about, like, a lot of people are like, is he going to embrace analytics, blah, blah, blah. When he was in Washington, those 2 years, they were doing a lot of shifts and things like that. It's the American League, so you have the DH. I don't have to worry about double switches and him pushing all those buttons and whatnot. Strategically, I'm not super concerned. I'm okay with Dusty Baker. It's a 1-year deal with a team option for a second year. So this is literally like the shortest deal in the history of baseball for somebody who's not an interim manager. So to me, the part that bums me out more than anything about the hire is that it's just the length of the contract is sort of a reminder of how finite their window is right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, their window now, with especially losing these draft picks, because they don't have anything to trade anymore. You know what I mean? Like, they've emptied the chamber on trade pieces. And, unless they're going to move Kyle Tucker, but they're going to start to need guys like that to be cheap labor with the direction all the salaries are going on this team.
Right.
So to me, it was almost a reminder that, okay, Dusty Baker will probably be the manager here for 2 years. And Verlander's deal is 2 years. Greinke's got 2 years left on his deal. Other than Bregman and Altuve, there's no core players who are signed beyond 2021. And I think it's just sort of a reminder that the window on this team now, whereas before it looked really open-ended, especially when you didn't know Garrett Cole was going to stay or go, like in the middle of last season.
Right.
And it felt like, boy, this thing could go on forever. Instead, I look at it and I go, okay, this is it. Like, they've got to win it these next 2 years because barring a miracle trade, there's nothing coming down the pike that's going to replace Verlander and Greinke after 2020 and 2021. And unfortunately, the guy who would make a deal like that, he got fired.
Right.
Jeff Luhnow, which is, so that to me, like, 2020 is going to be awesome. 2021 is probably going to be awesome. But the part where I'm mentally preparing myself for is this is probably going to be a team that falls back to being like an 85 win team after that. Yeah, I think they're still going to be they'll still be too good to bottom out with Altuve and Bregman and Yordan Alvarez and guys like that. But the window as far as being what we've become accustomed to these last 3 years, to me, is very, very finite. It's 2 years. That's it.
And so that's the one thing with Dusty, like, you talk to, everybody speaks to the checked boxes, and I totally agree, and I think that's everybody's main concern once we get past this whole stupid scandal will be, okay, this next year really is sort of one of two final years for us to make a run at this championship, another championship before we need to hit the reset button again. And if you're looking at him from that standpoint, and all you have to point to is the 0-10 closeout record in the postseason, and it's like, well, shit, man, what the hell did he say in his interview to make that okay?
Yeah, I think there was a big element to it, Ross, that they wanted somebody that was going to I think the PR of this thing is really important to Jim Crane, is the sense I get from the interviews he's
Right.
done. I actually interviewed him at the Houston Sports Awards for about 10 minutes, and I really get a sense that the perception of his team is important to Jim Crane. You know, like that they not only fired AJ Hinch and Jeff Luhnow, but they're bringing in guys that everybody around the league, like nobody, the sense, this is what I've learned about Dusty Baker, because I haven't been that tuned in on Baker either. Like you were saying, like you picture him in a Cubs uniform.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He managed the Reds and the Nationals too. I forgot. You know, that kind of thing. You know, I still picture him like, you know, managing the Giants back in Barry Bonds, that kind of thing. So I haven't been super tuned in on Dusty Baker either. So I'm kind of culling my opinion together, piecing it together by people I talk to and things I see. And the universal thing that I see about Dusty Baker is the Astros aren't going to get any more shit anymore about having somebody there who's letting chicanery go on. Like Dusty is perceived to be a guy who, if he sees stuff like that, he's going to put a stop to it. So I think there's a big PR element to it. And my guess is when it comes to the postseason stuff, Jim Crane probably tells himself, you know, look, we got a really good baseball team. Dusty is going to be armed with plenty of information to make better decisions if it comes down to that. And he still has Brent Strom as the pitching coach. So, you know, he's willing to take the chance that this is the year, you know, where, you know, the regression to the mean happens, so to speak, and Dusty actually maybe wins some things in the postseason.
That makes sense, especially because the team is just so freaking talented that if you're going to roll the dice and all things considered, then sure, it makes sense to have a guy who can really more like steady the ship and let the talent try to carry you to another ring while this dude has, and you sell it to him as like, look, man, it's one more opportunity to get a championship for you. Because he's an old fucking man. For Dusty, it's a chance to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's 137 wins away from 2,000 wins. There are, I think, 12 managers who've won 2,000 or more games in the history of baseball. All but one are in the Hall of Fame, and the one who isn't is Bruce Bochy, who's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point. So if Dusty lasts both seasons here, he's going to get 137. He get 137 wins and nap in the dugout literally every day. Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like 137 wins over 2 years is a layup, because if he makes it to a second year, by definition, it means he probably won like 95 to 100 games in the first year. So he's going to get to 2,000 wins if he's successful here. If he gets a World Series, he's punching his ticket. Like he's going to Cooperstown if he wins a World Series.
Man, that's a see, that makes me feel a little bit better because it gives him a little extra incentive to actually make this thing work. All in all, this entire conversation has made me feel much better. I feel like I should be paying you the same rates as my therapist or something.
I would never charge you.
Sean, I seriously appreciate you taking the time, though, brother.
I would charge other people, but I wouldn't charge you, Ross. You're my friend.
Thank you, man. It means a lot. No, and I really did need the conversation. Like, so much of this stuff is harder for me to make sense of 1 degree removed from Houston. And like my dad, my main sports man that I get my takes from and I develop my thoughts from, obviously, as it works for all of us, he is completely at peace with everything at this point. Like he somehow has found a way to just not give a fuck. And I can't do it. I've tried. So I'm still freaking out about every single team. And every time I talk to either you or him, it just makes me feel a little bit. And the things you just explained to me now, I just feel like I better have a better understanding. So thank you.
Good. We never did get to the Rockets, but
do we have
I
to?
don't know that that's an explainable thing right now.
I thought I loved Mike D'Antoni so much. Like MDA was my dude. I've been riding for him, but the product on the floor right now it's like he's trying to get fired.
Yeah.
Like Harden looks like he needs to go take a fucking.
And Harden looks.
Yeah.
Harden's a mess.
He's Tracy McGradying. I've seen this before.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I've already seen us have a superstar who just walks around the three-point line and looks like he literally looks like he wants to die. He looks depressed. And I've dealt with depression. I know what that feels like. That's what that dude is doing out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit bums me out.
Yeah, it's really weird because he's had to combine with superstars. You know, like him and Dwight, that didn't work out. Him and CP3 didn't work out. But ultimately, like those didn't work out because Harden just, you know, like Harden was the alpha and the other guy was just, you know, got swallowed up by the whole Harden vortex. You know what I mean?
Right.
But this one is weird because Russ is playing at an incredibly high level right now. Russ is balling out. He's become more self-aware. He's not shooting threes anymore. He's attacking the rim. He's saying all the right things after games. If you had to keep one or the other, I still keep Harden just on the spec that he's going to get back to where he was before. But boy, Russ has been a delight this last month.
It really has been a very strange, beginning of the season, Russ was still doing too much Russ stuff. He's shooting threes. Harden was on fire. It looked like it was going to be pretty much what we expected, except with Russ being not as good as CP3 was the year before, which is disappointing. Then we've hit this point where Harden has fallen apart or is mentally not there, perhaps injured, doesn't matter which one it is. Russ is literally carrying the team, and like you said, doing it efficiently, which is not something anyone anticipated. So now it's okay, if we can get that dude, keep him there, get Eric Gordon's fat ass healthy so that he's actually doing what he's supposed to be doing, and then get James, a sports psychiatrist, we're good. If we can do those three things. Yeah. And also, dude, this has reminded me, every time you bring it up, every time I talk Rockets with anybody and you get into James's history, it reminds you that this is the most dramatic sports league in the world. Every star is the most dramatic storyline. Name somebody in the NBA who matters, who doesn't just constantly have headlines about whether or not they hate their teammates, want to have everyone traded. It's fucking chaos in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can't name anybody like that. It is. It's part of the fun of it. The signature of that league, man. Yeah, it is. It is the storylines, man. It's a soap opera.
All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. But again, I appreciate you greatly for taking the time. Always a pleasure hearing your voice. Talking to you calmed me quite a bit. Thank you, Sean, for providing me with the support I needed.
Ross, truly my pleasure, brother.
Sean Pendergast, everybody. That dude always makes me feel better. Again, Mr. Sean Pendergast is on Sports Radio 610 each weekday, 6 to 10 a.m. CST. He has a phenomenal co-host as well in the form of former NFL player and Ivy League educated Seth Payne. I took that off Google. Seth, I would never just throw in that you were Ivy League educated for no reason, but congratulations on that. I love these guys, though. Sean won some kind of major award yesterday, by the way, before we recorded, that he didn't even tell me about or brag about. What an idiot. Congrats to Sean. Thanks to Sean. Houston, H-time, folks. Heads up. Stay strong. Do not let the haters break you. Has it been a tough stretch? Sure. But TIH, this is Houston. God left this place a long time ago. Before you head out to take on the world, it's time for some very important announcements. First and foremost, you have been saddled with 2 legal obligations having listened to this entire podcast. Whether you were aware of that or not my problem. First, legal obligation. You must rate and review this show. I don't care if you listen on Spotify, SoundCloud, you watch on YouTube, you bootleg it off of some torrent. I don't give a shit. But I do give a shit about where you rate and review. Apple Podcasts is the most effective place for you to do that. So, your first legal obligation is that you rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars, 2 or 3 sentences about why you like RBP, why you think other people would enjoy it, and boom, you're done. That's your first legal ob. Complete skied. Check mark. Move to number 2. To tell one friend, a family member, a coworker, neighbor, any one individual that you can think of that you believe this person, there's a chance they might like this podcast. They might enjoy it, damn it. The Ross Bolen Podcast, it might be for them. Share the show with one person this week, one person next week, one person every week until the week you die. Follow us on Instagram at the Ross Bolen Podcast, on Twitter at Ross Bolen Pod. We're also on Facebook. If you're the middle-aged aunt of one of our listeners, you can follow me, Ross Bolen, on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at WRBOLEN, at WR Bolen. By the way, check out Bolen Media's television and film podcast, Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. It's available wherever RBP is available. YouTube.com/Bolen Media for full video of those episodes as well. OCC is a ton of fun. If you're wondering why the hell is it named that, it's a Game of Thrones line, formerly the best #1 Game of Thrones podcast in all the world. Now we do just generally TV and film, whatever my good friend Barrett Dudley and I are watching, we talk about. We love it. We have a lot of fun. Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. Also, Westworld fans. If you're a big fan of Westworld on HBO, Season 3 is coming. We are in the midst of the process of bringing freeze-all motor functions, our Westworld podcast that Jared Borislow, one of my co-hosts here on RBP, and I started back at our former company. Jared exited that company with the IP to FAMF, and now we are striking a deal to bring it into Bolen Media and continue coverage of Westworld through Season 3. It's very, very exciting. FAMF! We do that. If you've heard this show before, that was tight for you. If not, you just think I'm weird. But Freeze All Motor Functions is a lot of fun. Westworld Season 3 is coming in a couple weeks. Excited for y'all to ride with us through what looks like it will be very, very confusing. I can't imagine a situation in which Aaron Paul has like a Chappie-style robot friend and also there's a Nazi world somewhere and it's not confusing. So you'll need us is what I'm saying. You need us. Freeze All Motor Functions. That will do it for RBP 263, recorded and produced by Mike Moody and Grant Davis at Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. We'll be back Monday? ? With episode 264, RBP 264 coming Monday? Maybe Sunday? Haven't decided. Podman gets paid. Respect Mr. Park. Strength and honor. Gang, gang, gang. Peace be with you. And also with you.
Peace be with you, and also with you. Go low, baby.